What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. So I feel that the hobby of Pokemon card collecting is pretty much at an all-time high right now. I feel like you can't go wrong in any direction in this hobby. Of course, there are products, there are certain cards, there are certain things that people may think are mistakes to buy or invest in, but for the most part, there are so many avenues in this hobby, and it just seems like everything is inevitably rising. And I mean, I'm not to say that everything is going to the moon, but you know, at the beginning of Scarlet and Violet, and I'm okay to be honest on this, I was very skeptical about Scarlet and Violet and how this era was going to fare in the long run. Knowing that the numbers were jumped up to how much they were printing, to going to my local card shop and being able to just pick out tons and tons of illustrations and SIRs, and feeling like this stuff was very, very abundant and going to be around for a while. And here now we're seeing, illustrations are moving on up. There are a lot of illustrations that have doubled in price, that have gone over 100% in price, that have gone even 5x that price if they're in PSA 10. There are SIRs that are doing extremely well. We're seeing sets like Twilight Masquerade popping off with SIRs right after release, and prices are usually really, really high after release for singles, but we're seeing prices pretty much hold for the most part on some of these SIRs, the Perrin, the Carmine, and the Greninja EX. So, we're seeing these prices hold, and we're also seeing stuff on Pokemon Center sell out fairly quickly, and I'm just starting to feel like everything in this hobby is moving on up. I've been a big talker about alt arts like Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon being really the primary focus that people should have, because those sets are older and really more priced in. But we're seeing kind of the opposite. We're seeing a lot of focus right now on Scarlet and Violet, and I think it's just we have more collectors coming into the hobby than ever. We have more people wanting to be more relevant than ever, right? They might not have been here in Sword and Shield or Sun and Moon, so they're sticking with the sets that they know, and so we're seeing so much demand in these sets. And it's amazing. I'm happy about it. I wasn't sure if this hobby was going to hold up pretty much after pandemic time. I really didn't know if this hobby was going to hold up the same. And I think that says a lot about me as a collector. I'm collecting stuff that I truly enjoy and that I feel like would hold up in the long run. And I'm also happy and proud to say that almost all of the vintage cards that I've been buying have done very, very well, just as well as modern stuff or better. And, this isn't to say that, you should buy vintage like I did more heavily than modern, because I also heavily bought into modern. I worked on my binder master sets. I bought a ton of cases and boxes and all kinds of random ETBs and collection boxes. But what I've learned is it's all kind of the same. A lot of this stuff is kind of the same. We see a different video every day saying that there's impressive gains on this and these sets are finally moving, but to break it down, I think everybody is saying kind of the same thing. And this video is kind of too, but just kind of summarizing everything that it's hard to make a bad play in this hobby. There are certain cards that we should focus on, or maybe even have a better eye for, or be watching the gem rates on, like some of the Paldea Evolved cards, which that set has just continued moving on up. There's certain cards that maybe you should say, okay, well, that Magikarp is really, really nice. That card is very intricate. And I know that when Paldea Evolved came out, people were all about the Magikarp. It wasn't the Magikarp. I'm sorry, I always say it a certain way. Everyone already liked that card, but I don't think anybody foresaw all of the hype and all of the appreciation and all of the the investability almost of all of this stuff. I don't think a lot of us saw that coming, and I'm okay to admit that I did not see that coming. I felt like prices were going to remain the same for a couple of years on a lot of these singles because they printed so many of them. It's abundant. Distributors are still offering great prices to the people that are resellers that have distributor relationships. They're still getting rock bottom dollar on this stuff. But on the secondary market, we see a whole other story of, like, I'm still auctioning off pretty much everything that I pull that I have already, and there's always a buyer for it. And that honestly shocks me, guys. It's not to say that I'm getting top dollar for stuff or that I'm, making buku bucks on auctioning off my stuff, and auctioning is definitely not the best way to get the most bang for your buck. Buy it now listings, set it and forget it are probably the best way to go. Wait for people to send offers or just to buy stuff for the price that you're listing it for. But I like auctions. I like feeling like maybe that's one way that I can give back to the community, is auction off all of the hits and pulls that I have that I don't necessarily need, or even for sets that I've pretty much completed or finished. A couple are here. And even some of these I've thought about keeping. I looked in my Shining Fates. We did a live stream last night. Thank you guys for coming out for that. This video will probably upload a day late. But like this Flygon and this Flygon Full Art and this Crobat VMAX from Shining Fates and Brilliant Stars. I pulled both of these recently, and I thought I already have both of these. I pulled a lot of, and this is another illustration that I think should be spotlighted soon. This is an incredible illustration from Obsidian Flames that I think people should think about if they are going down the route of, there's a lot of people talking about illustrator cards and that we should invest in illustration cards. They're rock bottom dollar. That leaves a lot of room for growth. They're kind of like the poor man's SIR alt arts. I like that a lot. I like thinking of it that way, and I think that you can load up on illustration cards. You can go to your shop and buy a ton of those for prices now for whatever TCG player is asking for them now. And then probably in the next couple months, these cards are going to rise in value. So there's so many little plays and different avenues you can take. But even these cards, I've considered like maybe I should keep some of these instead of auctioning everything off, because even stuff like the Full Arts and this Crobat VMAX from Shining Fates, like I see potential now in everything, and I didn't have enough time in this hobby before to really gauge what the best long-term plays were going to be. But I've made some mistakes. I've learned from that. And what I'm seeing now is just this hobby is just flourishing. It's flourishing. Sorry, my voice is a little messed up. This hobby is flourishing, and overall, I think will continue to trend up. Vintage stuff is trending up. Alt arts are at all-time highs, and maybe even retracing a little bit. And I think when stuff hits these peak prices, and people have really FOMO'd and hyped into these cards, I think that it's fitting for them to come back down, like the Umbreon VMAX, the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies. I think some other good ones are the Giratina from Lost Origin. That's another big one. Probably Brilliant Stars Charizard. Probably some of the smaller cards like the Machamp V from Astral Radiance. And the Aerodactyl from Lost Origin. I think a lot of these cards, the Silver Tempest Lugia, a lot of these cards I think are ready to kind of come down a little bit in price. The Blaziken from Chilling Reign, which I keep mentioning, I think a lot of these cards are ready to start coming down in price as people are really focusing on the newest, latest, greatest stuff, and we're seeing that continue. Scarlet Violet prices for all of the sets, really. There's not a single Scarlet Violet set that isn't faring well. I mean, Obsidian Flames is probably the runt of the litter, but everything Scarlet Violet base, which I think I was very critical on, even though I bought a lot into it. I think a lot of people thought Scarlet Violet base was going to stay where it's been at for the next couple of years in terms of booster box prices and case prices, but even Scarlet and Violet base has started to move. And for me, I look at the timeline of things. I look, if Scarlet Violet base is starting to move, everything is going to start moving. And that means probably all of the sets will probably move within a year to 2 years of being released. And we're seeing sets moving before that period. Will reprints, that's something that I'm always keeping on the back of my mind. Will reprints make a difference? Maybe not. It'll just give people the opportunity to buy into these sets if they miss the initial first wave of, you know, these cheaper prices. But everything, Obsidian, 151, Paradox Rift, Temporal, Twilight, everything in Scarlet and Violet is doing very well. There's honestly even a good chance that we look back and go, man, this was a way better era than we gave credit for. And now I'm honestly a little bit worried. I never would have thought that I would think this, but I'm a little bit worried that the next era will not have the juice the way Scarlet Violet did. And I was very, very critical. Guys, anybody that watches this channel knows that I've been extremely critical on Scarlet and Violet. I wasn't crazy about Paradox Rift, and it's grown on me a lot since then. The Altaria, the Roaring Moon, what's the next one that I'm forgetting? The Garchomp. I've become a big Garchomp fan. I really like that Garchomp SIR. That set is packed, honestly. It's a great set to buy into. It's a great set to just buy the SIRs. One thing that I would like to focus on as I'm finishing, you know, my vintage goals, which I'm still not really close to finishing, but I'm thinking, yeah, I'm gonna lose opportunities either way, like, because everything is starting to move up. The vintage stuff is moving up, but so is the modern stuff. And I just think it's hard to make a bad play in Pokemon right now. The only thing that I think people could screw up on right now is buying stuff too early on after release when prices are at all-time highs, like the Greninja EX being like a $500 card, $400 card in PSA 10. That's kind of crazy, guys. The set just dropped. It's kind of crazy. I would wait on cards like that. The other thing is really looking at market prices and looking at the last solds and making sure that you are getting as good of a deal as possible. I think it's easy for people coming into the hobby that have money to spend, right? Good jobs, money to spend. They've maybe gotten out of college, and a lot of the younger people that are coming back that are feeling nostalgic, they're ready to spend the big bucks. And I think that a lot of people might get caught in a cycle of overspending on cards, but that's about all I can think of in terms of where you'd go wrong in this hobby right now. There are more content creators than ever in the Pokemon space. I feel like I've seen the numbers double, triple, maybe quadruple in terms of content creators that I see becoming big names in this hobby. And you know, it's good for the hobby overall. I think everybody, if you're watching YouTube in this hobby, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. People keeping us to date on prices, people keeping us to date on the most popular SIRs. But for the most part, I think SIRs all going to do really well in the long run. Even though I'm not a fan of all of them, they're all going to do really well in the long run. Illustrations are a big one. The poor man's SAR, I think those are all a great way to go in this hobby. Stacking up on those, going to your store. Another thing is I don't know if it's a good recommendation to go after master sets and trying to complete all of these sets as they're being released. But that's something, you know, that might be a personal preference. I just feel like I've wasted a lot of time and energy into building my master sets. For Sword and Shield and part of Scarlet and Violet, and now I'm actually falling behind on it because I just can't keep up with trying to open up every single set. So looking back, I would say probably good to just have a binder full of SIRs and illustrations. That's where the hobby's going. These are the cards that we love the most. And you know, as I look at this Scizor, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe modern will surpass vintage in every way in terms of growth and long-term stability. It's possible. I mean, these artworks are incredible. Again, look at this Scizor that we pulled from Obsidian. This thing is absolutely phenomenal. What a gorgeous card. I was so happy to have pulled this card. This was one of the cards that I really wanted to pull. I really like the Scizor. It's still really cool artwork. And there's so much of that in Scarlet and Violet. There's so much of that. We started to see that in Sword and Shield when they started doing alt arts, and really alt arts go as far back as Sun and Moon. But man, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet are all very, very good eras, right? And the overall look, to summarize everything, you cannot go wrong in these 3 eras. They're all phenomenal. And I wonder if the next era, I wonder with the megas, are we gonna, we're already seeing people, with the mention of megas, we're already seeing people invest into mega cards, pretty much from the XY era. 2016 to 2018-ish, we're seeing a lot of people invest in cards like the old mega cards. And I went into that for a little bit. I was buying a lot of mega cards for a little while, but it's really just not for me. And so that does scare me moving forward in the next era. I was never really big on megas. I don't know if I need to watch the anime or play the games that featured megas, but I'm not a huge fan of megas, so I'm a little bit worried going into this next era, but I just want to say that this is an amazing time to be in the hobby. And Card Party was huge. We're having more convention events that are going on. This hobby just keeps evolving, and there's more and more people coming into it, and it's a very exciting time to be a part of this hobby, to be making content, to be sharing stuff with you guys. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I'm about to spend time with the girls today, but yeah, it's incredible seeing the track record of Pokemon cards right now, and thinking, Pokemon cards could potentially be a better overall investment than most other asset classes. I mean, it's really incredible to watch these sets just do so well in the short term. I mean, it hasn't even been like a 5-10 year period where we're checking back in on these sets. And I definitely think that making content, I think people making content talking about the various cards or the various sets, I think, and specifically talking about one set at a time or one card at a time, I think that is affecting the market. I think it's irrefutable. I think it is inevitable with content being created so often every day now. We're being influenced by the content that we watch, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. It teaches people. It's kind of a pack mentality right now that we're kind of all in on Pokemon right now. And I still believe there's risk there. There's risk with everything that you're going to invest in, but I feel like if everybody is staying the course, if everybody is continuing to buy Sword and Shield, which Sword and Shield is right now starting to level off a little bit, which I suspected would happen. I'm not bearish by any means, but I do think that we are still due a small retrace on Sword and Shield alt arts and Sword and Shield boxes. When things start to cool down and settle, and people are moving into the next best, hottest, most relevant thing, that's when we should see things get a little bit more reasonable for some of these Sword and Shield boxes and Sword and Shield arts. But yeah, I think it's inevitable that if everybody is staying in the hobby and we're absorbing all of this information and all of these videos from all these new creators that are coming onto the scene and talking about these sets, I think that it's inevitable that prices are going to continue rising, and that all of us are pretty much going to win in the long run. In the long run, like nobody collecting these sets right now is seeing losses unless they're opening stuff up. But right, like I will say, I do a lot of openings. Every single week we open up stuff, and there's losses incurred there, right? If you're opening things to chase after these cards, there are losses. But for people that are just strictly buying sealed, buying singles, this is the video for you guys. If you're buying sealed and buying singles, and keeping up to date with what's hot and what's trending, it's kind of hard to lose in this hobby right now. So I'm very bullish for the hobby overall. Wanting to see what happens in Scarlet and Violet. Are they going to give us another reprint? Stuff is going out of stock on Pokemon Center. We're seeing a reoccurring trend here where stuff is going out of stock. It's becoming very expensive on the secondary market, and we're seeing those prices hold for the most part. So yeah, very exciting stuff right now. In terms of deals, to end this off, in terms of deals right now, there's been a lot of cool stuff. There's been, Walmart has had Evolving Skies. We've had these broken Silver Tempest packs that have been available at retail that apparently have hits in all the packs. Then there's Costco dropping the 151 bomb with all of the 151 UPCs at $80 a pop. I really should go to a Target and try and pick some of those up, because that's the most fun for me to open. It's still my favorite set in Scarlet and Violet is 151. And then we've had some weird stuff go on. Opossum just covered a video that I watched today from a local card shop here in Charlotte that was having some beef at a convention. So there's still, of course, your drama, your regular drama in the hobby. But for the most part, things are all on the up and up. Card Party was a huge event. A ton of people went to Card Party, arguably a lot more than the last Card Party. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if they do this event again, if they do it bigger. Apparently there's talk of doing separate locations for Card Party. That would be really cool. I do think that would, if Card Party started to become a traveling event, kind of like Collecticon, that could bring a ton of people into the hobby. But man, this hobby just ceases to amaze me. It continues to grow and continues to flourish. And I don't think that there's a way that you can go wrong, whether you're collecting vintage or have a niche or collecting modern stuff or sealed investing. I think that it's all pretty fantastic. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got today. Just an exciting time to be in the hobby. Anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. Peace.